The state of Texas, through one of its funds, just pulled billions of dollars away from BlackRock, and that's a good thing. The reality of what's going on in the country is that a small handful of financial institutions, BlackRock, State Street, Vanguard, Invesco, and others, have weaponized the money of everyday citizens to vote for policies in corporate America's boardrooms that most Americans don't agree with, and even worse, do not advance the best financial interests of those investors. That's a fiduciary breach. Here's how it works. Pension funds, 401k accounts, individual investors turn over money to these index fund managers that buy stocks across the stock market, generally at what are viewed as low fees for index funds. That's exactly how it's supposed to work. But here's the part that deviates from how it's supposed to work. When they not only buy those shares, but they then vote those shares in favor of Scope 3 emissions caps at companies like Chevron, or racial equity audits at companies like Apple, that do not help the underlying performance of those companies. They hurt the underlying performance of those companies. That's where a lot of the woke corporate behavior comes from. You wonder where it's coming from? It's coming from the weaponization of your own money without you knowing it. Because the very people who purport to be the shareholders of those companies, BlackRock, State Street, Vanguard, and so on, are the ones voting for policies that actually hurt shareholders themselves. Why? Because the so-called shareholders aren't the actual owners of capital. That's not BlackRock and Vanguard. It's you, the people of this country, who have entrusted those institutions with your money. That's a fiduciary breach of the highest order. It's also arguably an antitrust violation. You have $20 trillion in the hands of those three institutions alone. That's close to the U.S. GDP controlled by three financial institutions, some of the most powerful companies in human history, wielding undue influence that our framers never imagined was going to be concentrated in the hands of that few number of actors, using it to advance a political agenda that most citizens disagree with. That explains why competing companies, Coke and Pepsi, Disney and Paramount Pictures, Microsoft and Apple, Exxon or Chevron, are behaving in the same way when it comes to these environmental or social agendas. That should be a little weird until you realize that the so-called top shareholders of those firms are none other than the firms like BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard. That's what explains it. I think it's also a First Amendment violation when it comes to their misuse of pension fund money to do it. The pension fund money, including from states like Texas, is being used to vote for effectively political policies that most people in that state did not consent to or vote for. That's what in the First Amendment doctrine you call government-compelled speech, where those pension fund participants don't have a say in being compelled to effectively support speech that they disagree with. So whether it's on First Amendment grounds, antitrust grounds, or fiduciary grounds, these are major violations, and it's going to take both bottom-up competition as well as top-down change, disentangling the government from the private sector, to actually fix this problem. As it relates to market change, that's why I founded Strive. It's an asset manager whose goal was to compete directly against the likes of BlackRock and State Street and Vanguard by offering investment products that voted for maximizing shareholder value instead of pushing ESG, environmental, social, or governance goals. And I'm proud of the progress that Strive has made pushing back against this ESG nonsense, leading the way through the private sector itself. But it's also going to take state actors to say that, you know what, we're not going to subsidize this behavior either. We're not going to weaponize state pension funds or the rules to favor environmental and social agendas over for-profit agendas. And the combination of those two changes, bottom-up market change, as well as changes in the right kinds of policies, are going to be how we revive the integrity of our capital markets and the integrity of capitalism itself, which is, yes, the last best-known system to man to lift us up from poverty. Not crony capitalism, not ESG capitalism, but the real thing. Stop apologizing for it. Start living those values again. Create value without apologizing for it. That's how we get our economy back, and that's how we get our country back. That's what I stand for, and I hope that more people are able to open their eyes and see how their own dollars are being weaponized, how they're voting not just at the ballot box, but voting with their dollars every day. And the more people become aware of that, the more empowered we're going to be to drive the kind of change we need in our capital markets.